you want to be successful? Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to dominate the day? Then you're going to need big Skip energy. All right, Laura, welcome to the Big Skip Energy Podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Great. Well, Kayla and I are very excited to have you on here. For those listeners that are not familiar with you and your body of work, would you mind introducing yourself for us?
Sure. Yes. So I'm Laura Witte, with one of the owners and loan officer extraordinaire with Highland Mortgage. Feels like it lately.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been in the business 25 years, closed over $1.5 billion in loans, helped a lot of people get into homes. And
Yeah.
there you go. That shouldn't be enough.
They're like, hey, that's about it. That's
We're talking about it.
Laura, we are coming off of the Gold Awards for the Mortgage Bankers Association of Georgia last week, where I had the distinct pleasure of being your table mate, of course. And you were one of the top 5 producers in the state of Georgia, closing $86 million and change. So first of all, congratulations again on that accomplishment. Now, one of the biggest things about that, and I think Kayla's going to ask you about this, is coming up 2023, right? There has to be some sort of secret recipe to this. So Kayla, go ahead.
Well, I look at your success, Laura, and I can't help but think when you're given fire, it can heat your house or it can burn it down. Clearly, 2023 heated your house, it didn't burn it down. And so there's a lot of loan officers all around the nation that will listen to this. And I think a lot of them will look at someone like you and think, wow, like, how did she do it? What are her tips and tricks and what worked and what didn't work? Because I think as a loan officer myself, you're always pivoting, right? You're always trying to find what's working in this market, and there's products over here that are new, and there's so much noise. I guess my question for you is, seeing what you did in 2023, but seeing also the market and how difficult that was, what are some of the things that you did or did differently than prior years in order to have such success as a loan officer?
I will tell you that January of 23, I don't think anybody knew how bad it would be. And it was the hardest year in my career. Literally the hardest year. It was worse than the crash. And I heard that from a lot of people that had been in this business a long time. At least with the crash, there was movement. We talked about that. And so it was really a difficult year. But in January, I had closed $2 million. January tends to be slower anyways. And I think I saw the storm coming. I mean, it really was just like a storm in our industry. And I was asked to speak at the Mortgage Girlfriends Conference in February. And and it was really good because I had to dive like deep and figure out, what am I going to talk about? They wanted to know my story about how I got in the business and how I stayed in the business and persevered through all these different markets. So I had to really, at the same time, figure out how I was going to survive what I thought was going to be a hard year. You heard the news. There was a lot of negativity. And then when I went to the conference in February, it was just the beginning of February. I think it was February 1st. And I thought, this is not how I'm going down. This is not going to be my story this year. I mean, It was more of a decision that I made. And I think everything that happens in your life starts with a decision. And then you figure out how to make it work. I mean, there's a lot of things that we did. And one thing we did was we hustled. We did everything that we could do. We tried different things. There's some specific things I can share, but I think the first thing starts with a decision and the mindset of, what are you going to do? What are you willing to do to get where you want to be? And what is the goal I want? I wanted to close as much as I closed in 22. My personal competitor is me. Whatever I did the year before, I want to do more. Even if it's $100 more, I just want to do more. So, and I did I think I did 2 or 3 million more than 22. So that was my goal. So seeing myself in that goal at the end of the year, how did I get there? What did I do to get there? And then I sort of worked backwards to figure that out. But I think the biggest thing was mindset. I just made a decision, not going down like this. This is going to be a good year. I'm going to figure it out. So that was the first step.
Amen. I love that you said you just make a decision, because I think a lot of loan officers got in their head and they kind of threw in the towel. And I felt that amongst my community, a lot of people were like, well, I'm going to take vacation this year. I might not never again. And although you just had to kind of pull back, where you just had to really pour in. And I love that. And I love hearing that, especially when you said you did more than you did in 2022. Like, how cool is that?
Yes. And it wasn't thank you. It was not an easy year by any means. I mean, I think everybody worked harder and made less. It wasn't.
I was just going to ask that. Do you feel like you worked so much harder, like double?
Oh, God, yes.
The dollar volume had been there, but the hourly rate, I'm sure, decreased.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We definitely worked harder, and there was more effort, more marketing, more support for our agents. I think the agents were kind of lost about what was happening. The market was psychotic. I mean, it was crazy. It was multiple personality. 1 minute, it was this rate. 2 days later, the rate movements that we had in 23 were insane. Loan officers could barely keep up, where our agents were just lost. So we wanted to educate them. So I did some of the tangible, specific things that I did were classes. I was doing, I think I counted 30 or 40, maybe more classes last year. PE classes, joint with some partners, attorney partners, inspectors. Also, lunch and learns, webinars, you name it. Anything I could do to educate and advocate and support.
Yes.
Were those all, it was all types of like in-person webinar, it was everything.
Everything, every model, webinar, Zoom.
That's what people needed. They needed the education, especially the client. I mean, we talked about this before, Skip, but like people don't need that lender that just is an order taker. They need somebody that's going to be educating them, because there's so much noise, especially in 2023, like providing those classes and those tools. Like, I love that you do that, because you're empowering your clients, your referral partners to be able to make the decision on their own, not hear rates are high and run. And that's what I think every lender should be doing. So
yeah. That was the other thing too, is that everybody was focused on this thing. Like, it's the rate, and they were missing everything else that was going on around it. Yeah. They were just holding on to this thing, the rates. I got to wait for the rates. And they were missing the opportunities. And I was trying to shift their focus. I think I was working on shifting the client's focus, because I always tell my kids, you can't solve the problem on the level of the problem. The problem is rates are high. Can't change that. Can't change the rates. You can offer a buy down. We didn't do a whole lot of buy downs, because I tend to be pretty conservative, coming off of many markets and seeing people lose homes in the crash and doing ARMs and all these weird things. So I tend to be conservative. So I didn't do a lot of buy downs, because it's just a temporary solution. So did not do that many. So I think trying to solve what I called like my affordability initiative, I just became like uber focused on what can I do to help people save money to buy a house monthly? Like, what can they do? Can they pay off debt? I work with so many people to rearrange their finances. So they took some money that they had that they were going to put down on a house, and they put less down, paid off their debt, refinanced their cars. I've never refinanced so many cars in my life. We don't personally do it, but like, I have somebody that I refer to try to rearrange people's debts so they can own a house, because like renting is just complete waste, absolute waste of money to rent. So just trying to help to support homeownership.
So there's two things there, though, just to kind of take it back one notch, Laura, that you said there, especially hearing all the negative stuff. And Kayla, you mentioned this too. It's all that negativity, and working on blocking that out to keep your mindset where it needs to be to keep yourself pushing forward is huge. It's actually funny. Mark was actually on the Atomic Habits meeting, around lunchtime today, and he actually brought that up too. And I thought that was spot on, trying to keep out the negativity, because if you let that get to you, it's going to really impact how you go about your day-to-day activities. It's going to affect your drive, your focus, everything. And the other thing that you said there that I really liked was that you could only control what you could control, right? You can't do a damn thing about rates. You can't change the Fed policy. But what you can do is exactly what you said. Focus on what you actually personally have control over. And Kayla and I have talked about this numerous times on episodes, and also just through other trainings, that the big differentiator is just exactly like you said. The biggest differentiator is education, educating your referral partners, educating your borrowers, hell, educating your peers.
Yeah.
That is the differentiator and what makes more, it really solidifies the relationship and the rapport more than anything else of late. And I think it's awesome what you did.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also tend to like to show people that they're wrong. Like the media is telling you it's going to be.
I'm not above a petty win. Okay. You know,
I'm a little bit of a rebel there. Not, you know, like you can't do this. Just watch me. I'll figure this out.
But it's true too, because so many people who are coming in like just so cynical and like, I can't afford a house. I've never had so many people be like, I'm not going to be able to be approved. And I've never too, like Laura, I can just tell you're like this, but it's like, you're also spending so much more time, like you said, refinancing people's debt. You are being truly an advisor of their finances. You're not just a mortgage lender doing the loan. You are telling them, how do you take something over 360 payments and spread that out? Why don't we utilize putting less down and pay off some of this other debt, this car debt over 5 years? And people sometimes don't realize that there are ways that we can structure them, but the lenders that are doing it right are taking the time to educate, empower, and advocate just like you are. And I love hearing it because we need more of that in this world.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's not like we talk about our production and how we have certain goals and stuff, but I mean, really, it's about, obviously, I know I can tell just by talking to Kayla and of course Skip, it's about the client and helping them, because there are people that are so stressed. And I love the feeling of being able to get through to somebody and like giving them that relief. You could just hear it in their voice, like, oh, wow, I could buy this house. My payments are going to be less. I'm going to buy a house and like save money per month. That's amazing. Like, how do we do that? That kind of thing. And kind of people will come to you and tell you what they want. And sometimes I was just talking to a realtor about this. Sometimes they don't. My dogs are about to bark. I'm so sorry, guys. Sometimes they.
Hardly been the first one,
yeah. So sometimes we can't give them what they want. And obviously sometimes what they want is not what they need. And we have to advise them like, hey, this is not a good decision. Like I had a file that came to me. It was a police officer, couldn't get approved. I was a third lender he came to, and he had a $1,100 a month car payment. $1,100 a month car payment.
On a
yeah, it wasn't, probably not the best decision. He was in his mid-20s. I mean, he obviously got swayed by whatever vehicle he had. So, I mean, we took some of his money and we paid his car down and we refinanced it. We talked about like, hey, maybe trade your car, maybe get a different car, but he was very attached to it. So we actually used some of his money to pay his car down and put the rest down, and he was fine. He was able to qualify. But thinking outside the box, helping people, becoming part of the solution and not just getting caught up in the problems. I mean, that's kind of like where my mindset is in this business. We're a solution-based business. We are a problem-based business, but we are a solution-based business. That's what we do. We help people solve their problems. So
I love that too. It's like solve, don't sell. Solve, don't sell. And how many times do people go to a loan officer and they're told, no, you're not approved. That police officer, Laura, he goes to you and you take the time to really review and strategize and solve. You weren't selling him something. You're like, how do we get to the solution and not focus on the doom and gloom? I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny. You were talking about the car payment. Back when I was probably my last year or two as an originator, I had a guy come to me, and I will always remember this. He was so adamant about this. He had a Jeep Wrangler fine, right? And he had it at 0%. Payment was like, it was like $500-$600 a month, something like that. But it was way too much car for him. He had no business owning a car. He's like, so I said, hey, look, you can either sell it or we can refinance it into a longer. But I got 36 months. I don't want to lose that 0%. I'm like, yo, man, you can't afford the car. 0% doesn't do anything if they're going to pick it up off your driveway. So let's look at this. And again, not only the car part, but how it fits into your mortgage. But yeah, it's the same thing. That's our job. And kind of like Kayla mentioned a second ago, if you take the time to educate and advise them, then you're really doing your job. Your job is not just to put them in a mortgage. That's like the end result. It's everything leading up to that really makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm kind of curious now. You just mentioned that one example. What is another way, if you've ever been, I'm sure you have, been faced with a client situation where you had to say, essentially, look, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I could do this loan for you. I think it's a very bad decision. I'm sure you've had that conversation before. Tell me how that goes down. What's your typical go-to for saying, I can, but I don't want to?
Well, I had this conversation this week, a couple of times with people.
It's in your mind. There we go.
It's a pretty great conversation. Like, you can afford this. The numbers work, but I want you to be able to comfortably make your mortgage payment every month. And we both know that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the different types of loans don't take into account I talk about their child care, their pet, how much are you spending on pet care? I mean, I go really deep with people. I don't just talk about, okay, your debt to income is 40, congratulations, you're approved.
Let's say we're already starting off on gross income instead of net. So, I mean.
Exactly. People have a lot of bills, private school. I mean, there's lots of things that, like, can you afford? That's one of the biggest questions I ask is, what payment do you want? Well, what am I pre-approved for? Well, I will tell you what you're pre-approved for, but I want to know what payment you want because they may not match. You've budgeted for this and you can't afford that. So if we can't figure out a way that you can afford this comfortably, then I think the numbers don't lie.
Laura, do you have a lot of people that don't know what they're comfortable with in a monthly payment? They're like, I'm not really sure. The reason I ask is in the last week, I've had 2 people that are like, I have no idea. And I always say, well, think about what you're paying for rent right now. Like, is that comfortable? Like, are you seeing that as well? And I just ask because I've seen it a little bit. And I'm like, I wonder like how much thought they're actually putting into this because they might be approved for a $4,000 home. They're paying $1,500 for rent. It's like, that's such a huge swing. And that makes such a difference each program, what they do. Are you seeing that at all?
Yeah, I have people that really just don't know. Like, I do the same thing. That's a good question. Like, what are you paying for rent? Is that comfortable? Like they just really want guidance and hand holding. Like, what do I think they can afford? Yeah. What do the guidelines say that they can afford? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then the thing is too, like in that case, a lot of times, let's say that it comes down to they can afford $600, but they're paying like rent on $400,000. Like they can afford more, but they're paying less. So I'll do estimates for them for $400, $500, $600. And then I'll tell their realtor, go show them houses in what they can get. And like, then they can make a decision. Like, do they want to pay $100,000 more? Do they need to be here in this location? Do they need an extra bathroom? Like, I try to connect the outside world. I try to connect the numbers. Yeah, I need to plug my computer in, guys. I know we're recording. Oh my gosh.
You go right in it.
Technical difficulty. How we can edit this out?
We can edit it out.
I really did it loud, I swear.
Your computer's dying because you get on it so much today.
I know. It's terrible. I'm so sorry.
This is real life. This is the life of a loan. You know,
I told her that I'm going to edit it out. I'm not going to edit this out. I'm going to have this play on YouTube.
I love it. That's just the real life of a loan officer, Skip.
Yeah. I mean, it's at 3:30 in the afternoon. My phone is down to 12%.
I'm about half, but I think mine plugged in most today.
Oh, I mean,
we're going on a little trip.
I feel like this is really demonstrating that you are good at your stuff is dying.
I am a working mom with 2 dogs. This is as good as it gets.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 2 puppies who probably are going to come over and say hi to me in a minute.
I think we need to meet the dog.
I told you, Jenny's a dog. Kayla, I was talking about you last Thursday.
Of course you were.
I mean, was, in the best way possible.
That's okay.
Come here. Come up. You're on a podcast.
There we go.
In a podcast. Here we go. Come on, guys. Come on.
They're big time now.
This is Gosley. Wait. And this is Lola. This is your sister.
You are looking very beautiful, Lola.
She's a little fluffy dog.
They're beautiful, Laura. Oh, wow.
Thank you. Right. They're my babies.
we need to make sure that when you guess that we make sure their dogs make an appearance. Yep. New rule. I'm thinking
that's a good idea.
I'm down for it. Okay,
Get some
Kayla,
dust
you want
in
to
the
go
background.
show Laura your picture of your dogs?
I'll show a picture, but they're in the
You're
bedroom
not
right
bringing
now.
them in.
They would be all over the place, but
Yeah,
I'll
they'd
show
be
you.
all over you.
Okay, ready, Laura?
Okay.
I have so many things popping up.
Yeah,
They're all pitties.
They're adorable. I'm a dog mom.
come on. There you go. So back to more boring stuff than just
I
dogs,
agree.
unfortunately. I know. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
back to
No.
mortgage.
Yeah, no, right. But one of the things that's really stood out to me, Laura, since I joined Highland /5x5 and on the sales calls on our Tuesday morning calls, right? You have shared some of the initiatives that you're doing out there to educate some folks that are, I don't want to say outside the box. One, because I hate that phrase, but two, is very creative and kind of flips the traditional way of thinking on its head. Are you comfortable sharing a couple of those that you just started on recently?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm happy to share. I'm trying to think about specifically. Let's see. You're talking about some of the initiatives, some of the classes we're teaching.
Yes. Yeah.
So the next class. So yeah, I try to do things a little different just because a lot of stuff we do is repetitive. So try to bring different energy into classes. So we just did an interesting one called List and P. What?
I said, kind of like your first
my
time.
first time home seller.
Yeah.
Yes, my first time home seller. Okay, so here's the thing. I thought that I just spoke at a Keller Williams office about like bridge loans and recasting. And a lot of people are talking about bridge loans and recasting and how can buy a house without selling. And this is not the market to have contingencies because of inventory being so low. So I thought we could do a first time home sellers class because a lot of our sellers are buyers. A lot of our buyers are sellers. And the thing is, in this market right now, there's sort of a stalemate, like in Atlanta and I'm sure other markets, where people are like, I don't want to sell because I don't know if I'm going to find a house, and then I'm going to be houseless. And then
Catch 22.
Right. So we're kind of like stuck. So I think that's part of the inventory problem. So I have taken 204. Don't know why I know that, but somehow I do. 204 applications this year so far. I was looking to someone, actually an agent asked me, thank you. And they're just, it's not converting like it needs to. We need more inventory. So since the inventory is there, I mean, there's people that want to sell their house because they want to move, they want to buy another house. So there's definitely more inventory. So I think if we educate the sellers that they don't always have to do a contingency, they can get set up with the Highland Bridge loan. And then if they qualify, obviously, and then they can be ready to close. We'll have them approved for the bridge loan. We'll have their appraisal done, ready to go. And then they can go out and look for a house knowing they don't have to sell. They can take their time moving. They can take their time listing and have that 90 days to like sell and get out of their house. And that way they don't feel stuck and they don't feel like I'm going to sell my house and have nowhere to live and go to an apartment. And this was because I went to an open house this weekend with a really good agent of ours. And I met this lovely couple whose agent told them, you have to move out. You have 30 years of stuff and live in an apartment, put your stuff in a pod. And that's the only way you're going to sell your house. And they were like horrified. Like, who wants to move out? Who wants to move twice? Moving sucks really bad. So anyway, so I think that's trying to be part of a solution. What is the problem? We have inventory problem. We also have a problem where sellers don't want to put their house or list. So we have some pocket listings. We have some agents that are like, oh, I have this house over here. They're going to sell once they find something. So I think this solves some of the problems for some sellers and buyers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, and that maybe, I hate to say it, maybe it's just because I've been living under a rock. I don't know. That's the first time that I'd heard of that name of that type of class. Now, the content, like you said, it's been around forever, right? But it's also in how you attract interest to it that I really liked about that.
Thank you. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of what we sell, like nothing, it doesn't really change. Like
it's
it's all the same thing. Like the buy down stuff has been around forever, but somehow it got like this big, like social media buzz, like the 2-1 buy down, but it's like been around for 20 years. So the stuff that we sell, you put a different spin on it, but also it's still relevant. It's still a very relevant product in the market. It's just either been talked about too much or actually nobody knows about it at all.
Yeah.
Now, it's like one or the other.
For sure. So, Laura, as we are coming to our close today, I'd like to ask you one last question, and that really pertains to advice you would give up and coming loan officers who maybe have gotten into the market the last couple of years and they're like, what did I do? How did I get myself into this? I can barely make ends meet. What kind of advice would you give them to try, because it's only March, right? To try and make the most out of 2024 that they possibly can.
Yeah, it is only March. It's not over till it's over, right?
Right.
You got plenty of time. I mean, I closed, we talked about this, 86 million. And by March, I maybe had 10. I mean, you make it up. It depends on the month. I think it's going to be a late market, at least locally for us. I think it's going to be busy in summer and fall. I think it's starting to pick up for sure. What would I tell them? I would tell them if they're going to do this business and they want to stay in the business, to try something different every day. And if something works, go with it. Try it even more. If it doesn't work, maybe try it again. Maybe not. I mean, just do something.
Yeah. Something's better than nothing. Right?
Something is better than nothing. You don't have to pick the perfect color for your marketing. Just throw it out there. Try something. Contact new agents. I mean, you're either in or out.
Yeah. Either in or out. That's right. Commit, baby. Commit.
Yeah. Make a decision. If you're going to do this business, you have to. This is not an easy business. This is not. It's not. I'm not going to.
Yeah, this is not
I don't know if I'm the most motivational speaker. It's not an easy business. And if you choose to do it, it's a great business.
And it was.
I mean, it's a great business. It's fantastic, especially like I was a single mom for 10 years. I'm still a mom, but I was a single mom working from home. You can work from anywhere. You can make your hours. It is such a great business, and to be able to help people, it's fantastic, but you have to make a decision with anything, not just loans. If you're going to do something in your life, make a decision, be congruent, and use every ounce of energy and choices to get where it is you want to go. And if you're not getting there, reevaluate, because it doesn't matter what market you're in. Every market's different. Every market, every year changes, and you have to reevaluate every year. And sometimes every couple of weeks, you got to reevaluate. Is what I'm doing working? And you have to use real life. Like, am I seeing loans come in? Am I seeing production? Am I running credit? If you're not, then try something different. But if you're committed, you're going to figure it out.
I love it. See, that's great. You said, oh, I don't know. And then you get, bam, you get it. Just like that. I love it. All right. So, Kayla's going to laugh at this question, I'm sure. But okay, so let's say you didn't have a career in the mortgage business. If you could pick anything else to do for a living, what would you do?
All right. I got an answer for you. What would I do? I mean, I would probably be like a lounge singer or something. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Ooh, I like this.
I sing. I had a band for a while. And
I did not.
I just said, I don't know.
Okay, well, I did not expect that. I
don't like that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So, Kayla, is there anything else you wanted to run by Laura?
Laura, yes. Before we go, you said do something different every day. Try something, do something to get apps, to get leads. What would you leave with our audience if you're getting the leads, you're getting the apps? We just talked about you can't change something, right? You can't change inventory. You can't change rates. What would you tell someone that's getting apps and getting leads, but they're not converting because of the rates and the environment? Yeah. What would you tell that loan officer?
Yeah, I would tell them, and this is really a great question and very timely, because my husband and I were talking about that, because no matter who you are, whether you do a lot of production or not, if you're human, you still have like, am I doing this right? Moments. I mean, you do with life. And, oh yeah, of course, every day. So you have to learn to control those thoughts and think about, again, what can you control? So inventory is low. So what loans are out there where it's not based on inventory? Finances, renovations that you can focus on to be able to be busy when they're like fill-ins. I've always had over the years my fill-ins. There was one year where I did like 10 million in equity lines. There's always fill-ins to fill in the holes in your pipeline if you want to close X amount. So you got to look for those.
Yep. I love that. That's a great tip. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are struggling with that. They get the lead in, then they sit. I had talked to not a colleague, but a past colleague today. And she's like, I'm getting leads. They're not converting. And I'm like, I feel like that's a lot of people, but I love the way they in that, Laura. I love that.
It is a lot of people. And then for the ones that, thank you. And then for those who are listening to this, I think you know your market and you can think about what those fill-ins might be. At the same time, if you do have a purchase, go all out with the listing agent. Call them and make sure that you are going to win that contract for your client, whatever you have to do that to whatever degree you can. Make sure you're calling your listing agents. If your buyers are putting offers in and that listing agent knows you are going to get this closed, that you're the best person to do it and they should work with you.
Yeah. That's a fundamental thing. It's still shocking how many people don't call the other side of the transaction.
You're shocked to know how often it doesn't happen around here. People are like, oh, what? Huh?
Close one, man.
Yeah. I love that. Just little things, fundamentals too. You just can't forget them. Amen.
Yeah. All right, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. I got a feeling that we'll be having you back on again.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. It was really nice to meet you, Kayla and Skip. Thank you.